Hi there. It's Matt. Welcome to what is maybe to me such an important topic to address after all that it kind of needed to be now, even though maybe I'm thinking maybe I could have waited like a few weeks, but it seems like a pretty great time to be recording this video now that things in my surroundings, things in my mind are settling down. And I think I'm going to be calling this one the Conquest of My Forbidden Self. And the reason I say the word forbidden is because in society is a metric of acceptance. And through the acceptance of people, it in so many ways it can end up playing the biggest part ever in their success, the biggest part ever in their upbringing. And one thing I'm reminded of immediately is the fact that I never had brilliant chances when it came to finding work. I was never really given a chance at any of the places I applied to. This would be... it would be quite a long time ago before I got shoved into what I've referred to multiple times. This massive trip of mine, this massive trip filled with realizations and filled with derogatory mentions, yet also with inevitabilities that went past the human eye, that were simply the moments and truths and revelations of life itself. But really, I was never a well-liked man by most people, but by immediate family, extended family, by my friends. I eventually became, throughout time, I became a very, even beautifully liked man. I could swear that I had and have, but we're more like disconnected now, but back then I had this group of friends that that I would chat with, and our conversations were so interesting and filled with cleverness. And I remember when I was having those conversations with my friends, all I could think is that we were so pitch perfect that it's like we should have been a podcast, because they're actually great. Like, I don't know how you end up having 10-20 discussions like that, and they're not even about like the education of the matter, yet they're just spot on, pitch perfect. And in having those chats, I revealed to myself who I really was. And I've always felt that there is some kind of instinctive link in my current day situation, or preferably the very massive trip that I undertook that lasted me those 4.5 years, because there were the release, the eureka, the euphoria that I needed to accomplish. See, it's even though I was discriminated against by many beings in my life, I was not by others, such as a typical life experience. But the way it all played out for me, it felt very elegant in a sort of weird, distant way. It felt unusually elegant. Maybe you could argue that any life experience is such a way. But regardless, that is how I'd feel about it. Now, the truth is before my 22 years of age neared their ends, there was a activation in my mentality. And I cannot deny that I was an erratic thinker and doer for the next solid year and a half after that. And the point was that in the shambles of my mentality, was a curse that was inflicted upon me that I had to defend myself from. And through this process, this trip of mine, I learned to defend myself. I learned to defend my mentality against this curse. But to simply proclaim it as such would be a lie, as I was always revelatory. Eventually it did become revelatory without the nefarious elements of perpetrating through to my sanity. Now, why was this trip so revelatory to me? Why would I even see it that way? What does it mean? It's turned me into a not fully spiritual thinker. I just want to... Good. It's turned me into a not fully spiritual thinker, into perhaps such a spiritual thinker that I've reevaluated life completely. I believe we are running on a sort of hive where we all interpret one another, and in that process we are inevitably breeding a perpetual future We are breeding an inevitable perpetual future for ourselves where we are to reincarnate. And a lot of people would say the reincarnation thing for the sake of their religious beliefs. A lot of people would say it because, hey, it does sound cool, right? The thing is to reincarnate means that there is a mental implication to the matter. To reincarnate means that at some point in time, your mind was calibrated. Your mind was observed. Your mind was deduced. And what that would mean inherently is that in the proposition of humanity was theory. In the proposition of humanity itself was a preemptive basis where the people would understand however they wanted to, but regardless of whether they even believed in the prospect of reincarnation or not, the point would be that they would be, in their own traction's sake, in their own movement's sake, in their own thinking's sake, and in that moment where you realize that you are independent, you may start to question, what does it mean for us as individual beings to have been theorized? I've spoken of how there is a bright future ahead for us, very potentially so. I've spoken of how there is a brilliantly opportune outcome for us if things go as I think they will. As the point links into ultimately how I can categorize this as schizophrenia by its very literal definition. I can do it because the point of schizo is that you are communicated to. Okay? But let's put it this way. The so-called chats or the arrangements that happen when I take my walks or what I met with in terms of words, dialogue, it all strikes me as too meaningful, as too coherent, and as too sane, definitely compared to the schizophrenic conundrum and its debilitating actuality. And the thing is yes, I'm kind of to mostly being sold a prospect alongside some of my personal deductions. But really, I just think there is such a importance to consider in how the schizophrenia is sane and rational. It doesn't budge from its consistency. So therefore, why am I caught up in the societal actuality that the schizo is an inherent demon in disguise? Even though in a way that could strike me as true, but it's not quite it in the way that a lot of people would think. Yet by so many I'd be called regressive, I would be called delusional. Okay? And I think it shows the amount of maturity that we have yet to accomplish as a society. And I find that disappointing. Now, what are my realizations in terms of this world? Well, here's how I see it. This world is a very minute part of a very massive picture. The fact of the matter is an entire reality could be constructed, not is, but could be constructed simply to appease one being. All it would take beyond that is for the cycle of life to continue giving. All it would take beyond that is for the births to keep on happening. I've thought to myself that time must be a falsehood, even though the ironic part is we all experience time the same way. Yet, to me, I've really been thinking about how time is a falsehood, because while it is true in the sense that the sun goes down around these parts for everyone at the same time, and we run on the time zone, and the time does not deviate in terms of the movement of the time, no matter where you are, right? But in different environments, why couldn't there be massive shifts in time? Meaning, relative to our time, something moves so much more slowly or so much more quickly. Like an environment moves more slowly or more quickly. But when you are in that environment, it just flows the same. That leads to me knowing that time is non-existence. Time is simply a category. It is categorized by the importance of the matter. There are too many benefits to some rich man for his workers to live under a time, well, let's call it a time warped faculty. Okay. Where the man himself would simply experience a week, but his workers, they would experience years. And the point could be to speed up the progress of entertainment being delivered to the people. The point could be to mitigate the losses, just like the point could be for a more quick for quicker access to some sort of result, right? Like it actually kind of does blow my mind how easily abused this system could be within just the system of today. Like, if it existed at all, in any way, shape, or form, we'd be living under a whole entirely different condition where you would have to fight for the rights of workers to live on the same timeline as the politicians and the billionaires. I guarantee it. And anything that is a precedent like that, expect it to happen beyond our doors. Or at least to have happened, you know? Anyways, there has been some sort of irony in how, you know, I could remember my voices being a lot more of a problem. They filled me with despair in the past. It literally did get to that point. Now they're versatile. They go from being an annoyance to a reward. And the reward comes when something useful, something important is demonstrated to me. It's been especially meaningful though, because I have imagined that I have been trailed, followed by demons. Okay? Yet, I get this kind of feeling that the true root cause of the insolence upon me, the waking trials, it was perhaps never demonic all along. Maybe the true problem laid in humanity. But see, I underestimated what humanity what it really can be like. For a long time I did. I knew there were serial killers, okay? I knew there were cynical thinkers, but I assumed the grand majority of people to have sensible, meaningful emotions and to not believe in such a thing as jealousy, to to want the world to prosper by any means necessary, right? And to me, the point has been, that in this gullible game of mine that I played most of my life, I allocated too much baggage mentally. And yes, it was not enough for me to be overcome in the end, as I feel like things are fading away quite well. But it does not change that. Now, the truth is I have spoken more negatively of my schizophrenia. I mean, at this point, I kind of feel like I am more privileged than I've let on. Okay. It is understandable to feel distraught because of a mental disorder. Don't get me wrong, it is beyond understandable. But really, the way it has all played out, okay, the fact that I am years in without any sort of serious predicaments under my hood, all I can really say is job well done to myself, potentially to, who knows, maybe allies beyond our world. And I look forward to better days. The conquest of my forbidden self was always without the public's approval. It was with my approval alone. And the reason I say that is because I still do suspect that the conclusion could end up outweighing everything. Take care. I love you, and goodbye.